not only in the entire world, but also in the world of the entertainment industry, which we will call Hollywood, but of course being here in Austin and everywhere else around the country, we know it's not just based in Los Angeles, of course. So who we have here today is we have leaders from some of the labor unions whose members are on the cutting edge of the impact and the implementation of AI in the entertainment industry. And I think we're going to have a really fascinating conversation today about what that means for creative people, and how we all, as the folks who are helping make sure that creative talent and people who are working in the entertainment industry are actually both being protected and having the opportunity to work with AI in ways that actually drive creativity forward, as opposed to bringing us all down with scary dystopian futures of AI. But before we get to that, let me start out by introducing, well, first of all, I'll introduce myself. I'm Duncan Crabtree Ireland. I'm the National Executive Director and Chief Negotiator of SAG-AFTRA. For anyone who might not be for anyone who might not be familiar with SAG-AFTRA, we are the labor union that represents, among others, actors and performers in the film, television, and streaming industry. We also represent, by the way, broadcast journalists in all of those same areas. We represent recording artists as well. So we're in the music industry, film and television, pretty much all of the stuff that's here at South by, plus broadcast journalism as well. To my immediate left is Rebecca Ryan, who is not only the granddaughter of some union organizers, but who is also the Western Executive Director and the Associate National Executive Director of the Directors Guild of America, which represents 19,000 plus directors and their teams working in film, television, streaming, commercials, and broadcast. And in her particular role, she participates in contract negotiations, supervises the contracts, DEI, and television departments, and oversees safety and agency issues and legislative affairs in California, which I've just been very busy even in the last few days on that front, I know, so we could talk about that maybe a little bit. Thank you so much for being with us, Rebecca. To Rebecca's immediate left is Sam Wheeler, who's the Executive Director of the Writers Guild of America East, which is part of, affiliated with the AFL-CIO, as is SAG-AFTRA. He joined the Writers Guild East after serving as the National Executive Director of the American Guild of Musical Artists since 2022. He began at AGMA as their Eastern Counsel in 2019, and prior to AGMA, he was an attorney at Cohen Weiss and Simon, an excellent law firm in New York, if I do say so myself, and also served in the Office of the General Counsel at both the National Education Association and the United Steelworkers as a Peggy Browning Fellow. If you don't know what that is, you should look it up. It's an amazing program for anyone who's interested in helping represent and protect workers. So thank you so much, Sam, for being here. And to his immediate left, last but certainly not least, is Vanessa Holker, who is an International Vice President of what we colloquially call IATSE, which is the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, and has been the Assistant Director of their Motion Picture and Television Production Department since 2014. Before that, she was an international representative, and she's organized non-union programs and productions and negotiated contracts for scripted and non-scripted television and internet projects, as well as feature films. And she also serves as an executive board member of IATSE Local 600, which is otherwise known as the International Cinematographers Guild, and is a trustee on the Motion Picture Industry Pension and Health Plan. So all of them, amazing group. Thank you so much for being here. So why don't we go ahead and kick it off, and let's talk a little bit about how people who work in labor, people who think about workers' issues and creative talent issues on a daily basis, what's on your mind about protecting people with respect to AI? And I want to specifically focus that on what type of AI protections have you either negotiated into recent contracts, or have you been thinking about as you envision future contract negotiations that are coming up for each of you? I think for this one, I'm going to start off with Vanessa.
Yes, so we followed, our major negotiations followed the other industry guilds in 2024, and we came in with quite a few AI proposals, as you can imagine. Some of the things that we achieved in that was, a big issue for us is when someone is assigned the use of an AI tool, it is very clearly laid out in our contract now. That's covered work, there's no question about it. We've had, unfortunately to say, in the past, sometimes the studios take the position that new technology means it's not covered, and then you spend years fighting to get it covered. AI is covered work. Other elements that we got a really interesting one that I'm not sure the other unions and guilds got, because it's kind of specific to the work we do. that if an employee, the producer cannot use their prompts that they use in an AI tool to replace that worker or other workers. So they could not take an editor's prompt, say, recreate how an editor edits, and get rid of them. That was something we achieved. And then something a lot of us shared was that we got meetings with the employers throughout the life of the contract, both as the large group that AMPTP is called, that's all the studios, but also specific meetings if we need them with specific studios. Ask them, how are you using this? Discuss issues that are arising. We also got the development of work training programs. That is currently in process as this technology begins to be used. We will develop ways to both educate folks who are using those tools and do any reskilling or upskilling we need to do. So that will be an ongoing process.
No, I think that's a really great point that's embedded in what you just said. I think it's something that all of us share in common is the fact that part of knowing how to attack these problems is actually knowing what is happening. And that requires an intense amount of commitment of effort and energy on the part of your team, but it also requires the folks on the other side of the table to actually be forthcoming about what they're doing. And I think many of us have embedded that type of contract language like you just described to us into our agreements. But also, like you said, there's some things that are unique to the IATSE agreements. I think there's some things that are unique to all of our agreements as it relates to AI. So Sam, why don't I pop it over to you on that same question, that sort of maybe following off that theme. Is there anything that you think is particularly unique to writers that is embedded in your AI protections that you have now or that you're thinking about looking for in the future?
Yeah, thank you. I think in addition to representing folks who work in film and television, under what we call the MBA, we also have members who, like SAG-AFTRA, work in broadcast journalism and who work in online media, and those have primarily been the contracts that have come up in the last several years. And I bring them up here in a panel on Hollywood in an AI-saturated future because I think that some of the lessons and some of the approaches that we've been thinking about are applicable to how this is going to be deployed in the film and television industry. When we go to the table to negotiate on AI, we think about safeguarding members' jobs, their compensation, their dignity at work, but we also increasingly find ourselves standing up for their profession itself, to standing up for the basic tenets of the profession that they have dedicated their lives and their talents to. So to give you one example, we just concluded an agreement with ABC News, which we hope will be a precedent in setting CBA in the news industry. And there are some really interesting provisions in there that are really more directed at integrity of journalism than they are at anybody's individual terms and conditions of employment. So to give you one example, we have a provision in that agreement that no journalist has to share a byline on a piece that has AI components on it. We have components in the ABC agreement that make sure that if AI is deployed to do news gathering, that it be held to the same standards, the same ethical standards that our members who are journalists are also held to. And so,
are you saying that you have a provision that says that a writer will not have to share a byline with AI tools?
Yeah. So if the if ABC puts out a piece where AI significantly contributed to it, our journalists can take their names off of it. And that was something that took me by surprise. And so when we think about Hollywood and we think about film and television, I think that some of those same tenets apply, which is that this is a tool, it's unlikely to be going anywhere, but we have to think about not just safeguarding jobs and safeguarding wages, but safeguarding the craft that has brought us this amazing industry that we all care so much about.
It's such a good point. It actually reminds me that in 2023, before the big strikes of your sibling union, the Writers Guild West, and SAG-AFTRA that year, at the Writers Guild Awards, they actually gave a fake Writers Guild Award to ChatGPT for having allegedly written the script for this horrendous little clip that they produced for that. So clearly that's been a concern on the forefront of writers' minds since really the inception of it being understood that generative AI and LLMs were going to have that kind of capability potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and I'll just say this once and I can get it out of the way, the fact that this technology was built on wholesale theft of my members' work has meant that